We'll talk about spiritual change like it's just a new belief, a nicer journal entry, or a better attitude. But your brain doesn't change because you had one deep insight. It changes when attention repeats, when emotion marks an experience as important, and when the body keeps practicing the same state until that state starts to feel normal. So if your system keeps rehearsing fear, shame, urgency, and the same story about who you are, then even real spiritual truth gets filtered through old wiring. In this video, we're connecting neuroplasticity, the default mode network, memory, regulation, and attention, because inner work only starts showing up in daily life when biology starts cooperating. And if that doesn't happen, you can keep chasing wisdom for years while still living inside the same inner weather. The brain is not fixed, it is trainable. For a long time, people believed the adult brain was basically set. Like once you reached a certain age, that was it. The wiring was done, and all you could do was manage whatever you got. That idea didn't hold up. The brain keeps changing across life, and not in a vague, motivational way. Connections between neurons can strengthen, weaken, get used more often, get used less, and in some cases get pruned back so different patterns can take over. That's what neuroplasticity means in plain language. Your nervous system changes based on what it does again and again. Thought matters, emotion matters, attention matters, behavior matters. If a pattern gets repeated, the brain gets faster at running it. If a pattern stops getting rehearsed, the pathway can lose strength over time. People often sum this up with the phrase, neurons that fire together, wire together. And while that's simple, it points to something huge. Repetition becomes preference, and preference can start to feel like identity. You can see this in really concrete places. Stroke rehab works partly because other parts of the brain can help take over lost function through repeated training. Musicians don't just get better with practice, their brains change with practice, especially in areas tied to movement and coordination. Even imagined movement can activate motor regions, which tells you the brain responds not only to action, but also to mentally rehearsed action. And meditation research has shown changes in gray matter and connectivity, which matters because it means attention training isn't just a nice idea, it can leave a physical trace. This is where a lot of people judge themselves unfairly. They try to change, fail for a few days, then decide they must be lazy, weak, inconsistent, or not serious enough. Usually that's not the problem. The old circuit is simply more practiced. It runs with less effort because it has more history. If you've spent years rehearsing self-criticism, your brain can reach that pattern before your conscious mind even notices what happened. The same goes for resentment, panic, numbness, and the constant need to stay busy. So when people say, "I know better, but I still do the same thing," that split makes sense. Knowing isn't the same as training. Insight can point the way, but insight alone doesn't build speed. The old route is faster because it's familiar, and the new route feels awkward because it hasn't been repeated enough yet. This clicked for me when I stopped treating change like a moral test and started treating it like learning any other skill. When you're learning an instrument, you don't expect one good lesson to erase years of bad technique. You repeat the new motion until it gets easier than the old one. Now bring that into soul language. The fear loop isn't the deepest you. The shame loop isn't the deepest you. The scarcity voice, the harsh inner judge, the reflex to brace before anything even goes wrong, those may be strong patterns, but strength doesn't equal truth. They're trained grooves. They can dominate experience without defining essence. That's why I like the phrase neural becoming. You're not trying to dig up some frozen, finished self hidden under damage. You're growing the capacity to express something truer with more stability. And if the brain can keep changing, then the next question gets more interesting. What is it in you that notices the pattern and decides not to keep feeding it? The witness and the filter. Who does the rewiring? So now we get to the strange part. If a pattern can be seen, interrupted, and replaced, what exactly is doing that seeing? Because the anxious thought can't be the thing that frees you from the anxious thought. The defensive loop can't be the thing that steps outside the loop and questions it. Something in you notices. Something in you can watch a thought appear, feel the pull of it, and still not become identical with it. This is where the channel's filter idea matters. The brain may shape how consciousness gets expressed, but that doesn't mean consciousness starts there. Think of the brain less like the author of awareness, and more like the structure through which awareness gets organized into personality, language, memory, and reaction. If that structure gets noisy, your experience gets noisy. If that structure calms down, something quieter and wider becomes easier to notice. A lot of spiritual traditions point to this same split in different words. In Advaita, awareness comes before thought. In Buddhism, thoughts, feelings, and perceptions arise and pass, but you don't have to cling to them as self. The point isn't to become detached in a cold way. It's to stop getting fused with every mental event that passes through. When you can notice, my mind is spinning, instead of instantly living inside the spin, a different kind of freedom starts showing up.
There is also a brain network that fits this conversation surprisingly well, and that's the default mode network. This network is often linked with self-referential thinking, mental time travel, comparison, replaying the past, imagining the future, and maintaining the running story of me. That story function isn't evil. You need some sense of self to plan, remember, and function. But when that network dominates all day, the inner narrator starts sounding like reality itself. Then every fear becomes prophecy, every memory becomes identity, and every social comparison starts feeling personal. This is part of why meditation can feel so different from ordinary thinking. You're not just relaxing, you're practicing non-fusion. You're watching experience without feeding every comment the mind generates about it. Research in the source material points to long-term meditators showing less default mode network activity, and that lines up with what many people report directly. More space, less chatter, less stickiness around the story. Compassion practices also matter here, because they engage areas like the insula and prefrontal cortex, regions tied to empathy and regulation. So the brain isn't only getting quieter, it's also getting better at meeting experience without panic or attack. I saw this in a simple way with someone who kept snapping at their partner anytime they felt criticized. For years, the reaction arrived instantly. Tighten, interrupt, defend. One day they didn't become enlightened, they just noticed the surge half a second earlier. That tiny pause let them hear the tone in their own voice before the argument fully started. Then they breathed, answered slower, and the whole scene changed. Small moment, huge shift. Not because the personality magically vanished, but because observation arrived before habit finished taking over. That's the hinge. The witness doesn't erase the pattern on contact. It creates room around it. And in that room, a new response can actually land. Over time, that changes more than behavior. It changes who you think you are. But seeing the pattern in thought still won't hold for long if the rest of your system keeps reading the world as unsafe. And that's where we have to go next. Because a lot of what people call spiritual failure is really a body stuck in protection. The body keeps the pattern, so the body must join the change. Once people start noticing the loop, they often assume the rest is mental. They think, okay, I caught the thought, so why am I still reacting like this? Because the pattern doesn't live in thought alone. Stress settles into the body. You can see it in clenched jaws, lifted shoulders, shallow breathing, bad sleep, jumpiness, stomach tension, and that constant sense that you need to be ready before anything has even happened. The body learns a style of being, and then it keeps running that style long after the original moment has passed. This matters because survival responses move fast. The amygdala reads for threat, and when the system decides something feels dangerous, your body can brace before your conscious mind has built a sentence about it. At the same time, signals travel upward from the body through pathways that include the vagus nerve, which means your brain is always getting updates about your internal state. If the message coming up is pressure, constriction, alarm, and overload, then clear reflection gets harder. The prefrontal cortex, which helps with regulation and choice, works better when the system feels safe enough to use it. That's why insight can feel real at noon and disappear by 6 o'clock. You may fully understand your wound, know where the reaction comes from, even have language for the pattern, and still snap, shut down, freeze, or spiral, because the body memorized danger before the mind could explain anything about it. A lot of people think that means they failed. It usually means the body hasn't joined the change yet. So the work has to come from the bottom up too. Slow breathing helps, especially longer exhales, because it gives the system a different rhythm to organize around. A body scan helps because attention starts contacting places that usually stay armored and ignored. Walking helps when it's slow enough for you to feel your steps instead of using movement as more distraction. Humming can help. Stillness can help. Yoga can help. Even something as simple as looking around the room and naming what is actually here can help, because orienting tells the nervous system that this moment is not the same as the old one. And none of this needs to feel dramatic. That's where people get stuck. They expect one giant emotional release, one perfect meditation, one deep cry, and then the body should be done protecting. Usually it works through small repetitions. You notice your chest tighten, you lengthen the exhale, you feel the urge to rush, you slow the next movement down, you catch yourself shrinking inward, you let your shoulders drop, and your eyes look outward again. Those are small acts, but the body notices them. It starts collecting a different set of predictions. Then a new loop begins. Not a fear loop, a safety loop. The body feels activation, but the old defense doesn't fully take over. You stay present for 5 extra seconds. Next time, maybe it's 10. Then one day the trigger still arrives, but your whole system doesn't immediately act like you're under attack. That's a real shift. It means the map is changing. Spiritually, this matters more than most people think. Awakening isn't escaping the body. It isn't becoming so conscious that the body becomes irrelevant. It's letting the body stop hijacking awareness all day long. If your system is constantly preparing for danger, silence won't feel peaceful, it will feel exposed. Presence won't feel holy, it will feel unsafe. So part of inner transformation is teaching the body that it doesn't need to interrupt every quiet moment with protection. When that happens, awareness has more room to stay. And once the system settles enough to stop organizing around survival, attention can finally start doing deeper shaping work. Attention is the sculptor, rewiring through practice. Once the system isn't fighting you every second, attention starts doing something more than noticing. It starts training. Whatever your mind returns to, most often gets easier to return to again, and that means attention isn't neutral. It acts like daily instruction. If you keep feeding one state, one mood, one interpretation, the brain gets more efficient at producing it. That's true whether the pattern helps you or drains you. This changes how you look at practice. A lot of people treat practice like warm-up, like the real transformation will happen later if they meditate enough, read enough, or finally understand enough. But the repetition is the transformation. Every time you come back to the breath, every time you stay with one task instead of scattering, every time you interrupt a harsh inner comment and replace it with something steadier, you're not preparing for a new self later. You're building the conditions that make that self more likely now. Think about what most people rehearse all day without even naming it. They rehearse urgency by checking everything immediately. They rehearse fragmentation by switching tabs, apps, and thoughts every few seconds. They rehearse resentment by replaying conversations and editing them in their head. They rehearse self-attack by turning every mistake into proof of inadequacy. None of that stays just mental. Repetition teaches the system what to expect, where to go, and how to organize the next moment. So chosen attention has to become deliberate. You can rehearse compassion, which changes how you meet your own pain and other people's flaws. You can rehearse gratitude, not as fake positivity, but as training your mind to register what is already here, without only scanning for lack. You can rehearse silence by leaving small spaces in the day where input stops and awareness doesn't have to chase stimulation. You can rehearse service, which shifts attention away from constant self-concern and into contact with something larger than your own looping narrative. This is part of why some people seem calm in a way that doesn't look forced. They aren't winning an argument with stress every minute. They've repeated steadier states so many times that those states come online with less friction. The pattern changed. Peace moved closer to automatic. And that should encourage you, because it means calm doesn't have to stay a rare peak experience. It can become more available through training. This clicked for me when I realized the gap between the person I admired and the person I was being wasn't always some giant spiritual distance. A lot of it came down to what each of us practiced on ordinary Tuesdays. One person practiced distraction, reactivity, and complaint. The other practiced presence, restraint, and return. Multiply that over months, and the difference starts looking like character when a lot of it began as repetition. There's also a strange paradox here. People imagine awakening as far away, like something waiting at the end of years of work. But each genuine moment of presence cuts that distance down. The seeker stops running ahead of the moment and drops into it. You could call that Zeno's paradox reversed. The more fully attention lands here, the less separation you feel between where you are and what you've been seeking. Sometimes people touch that state in flow, deep prayer, contemplation, or psychedelic experiences. The filter thins for a while, and life feels less crowded by narration. Those glimpses can matter. They can show you what's possible. But a glimpse isn't a home. If you want the change to hold, daily repetition has to carry it into ordinary life, because even steady practice can still get pulled backward when memory and language keep rebuilding the same version of you. Rewrite the story: memory, language, and identity. Even with good practice, people still get pulled into an old version of themselves because memory doesn't just sit in storage like a file you never touch. When a memory comes back, it becomes active again. And that matters because active memories can be stored again with a different emotional frame. That's the basic idea behind reconsolidation. The event may not change, but the way it lives in you can change. And for a lot of people, that's where real movement begins. Because the pain isn't only in what happened. It's in the way the brain keeps loading that past into the present and acting like it's still the main instruction. You can feel this when one moment from years ago still shapes how you read a room, trust a person, or hear your own thoughts. The memory returns, your body reacts, and your mind fills in the usual meaning. This is what always happens. This proves who I am. Nothing has really changed. The loop tightens because the story arrives already finished. So the work isn't pretending the past was fine. It isn't coding damage with positive language. It's letting the memory come up without giving it the same final word every single time. That shift can sound simple, but it changes a lot. "This ruined me" lands very differently than "this hurt me," and I've been carrying it ever since. One sentence locks identity to the wound. The other names the wound without handing it permanent authority. Then you can go farther. "This shaped me, but it doesn't get to run the next chapter." That's not denial. That's authorship. You're not erasing what happened. You're changing the role it gets to play now. Forgiveness belongs here too, and not as some forced moral performance. If resentment keeps replaying, the brain keeps treating the injury like current business. The body tightens around it. Attention keeps circling it. A part of you stays organized around the offense. Forgiveness interrupts that repetition. It doesn't always mean trust again, closeness again, or pretending no harm was done. Sometimes it just means you stop volunteering your nervous system as a place where the old injury gets to keep happening. That alone frees up a huge amount of energy. Language shapes this more than people realize. The words you keep using train expectation. If every hard feeling becomes too much, a battle, or a trap, your system prepares for collapse or combat before the moment has even fully arrived. Change the language, and the reaction often softens just enough to give you options. This is a wave. This is activation. This is a passing state. Those phrases don't solve everything, but they stop turning every difficult moment into a total identity claim. I think this is one of the biggest mistakes people make in spiritual work. They use language that sounds deep, but it keeps them stuck. They keep saying, That's just how I am. I've always been this person. I attract pain. I'm broken in this exact way. Say that enough, and the mind starts treating repetition like fate. More honest language sounds different. This is a pattern I've practiced. This reaction is familiar. My system learned this. That's more accurate, and it's far more useful, because learned patterns can be retrained. So identity stops being a fixed label and starts becoming a lived process. You're not standing there trying to excavate one perfect permanent personality. You're shaping the kind of inner life you can inhabit. And as the old story loosens, something quieter has room to come through, which leads to the practical question: what kind of daily life actually makes that change stick? Build a daily path of neural becoming. So what do you actually do with all this? You make it small enough to repeat. If the plan is too big, you'll turn it into another ideal version of yourself that never survives contact with real life. What works better is a simple structure you can return to even on a messy day. One morning attention practice, one body regulation practice, one identity practice, and one interruption you use when you get triggered. Start with the loop that shows up most often this week. Not your whole personality, not your life story, just one repeat pattern. Maybe it's rushing, maybe it's people-pleasing, maybe it's checking your phone the second discomfort appears. Name it plainly, because shame makes patterns harder to study. You want accuracy, not self-attack. I disappear when conflict starts. I tighten when I feel judged. I go numb when things get quiet. A clear name gives you something real to work with. After that, pair the loop with a replacement that takes less than a minute. Keep it practical. If you rush, your replacement might be one slow breath before opening the next app or answering the next message. If criticism hooks you, your replacement might be feeling both feet on the ground before you speak. If your mind spirals at night, the replacement might be a longer exhale and one sentence like, "This is activation, not a command." Tiny actions matter because they actually happen, and what happens repeatedly is what starts to stick. Timing matters too. Don't rely on motivation. Link the new response to a cue that already exists. After you sit up in bed, do 2 minutes of silence. When you wash your hands, relax your jaw. Before meetings, drop your shoulders and slow the breath. Right after a hard text, wait 10 seconds before replying. The brain learns context along with behavior, so repeated cues make the new path easier to access when you need it. Your environment also trains you whether you choose it or not. If your phone is the first thing you touch every morning, you've already handed your attention to whatever wants to capture it. If sleep gets wrecked every night, regulation gets harder the next day. If every quiet moment is filled with noise, the system never gets a chance to settle. So reduce what keeps dragging you back into reactivity. Protect sleep. Be selective with what you watch, read, and listen to. Keep some empty space in the day where your mind doesn't have to perform. If you stay with this, the changes come in layers. In a few weeks, you may notice that reactions take longer to build. A couple months in, the emotional weather may stop flipping as fast. Give it years, and the state that once felt rare starts feeling familiar. That's the part people miss. Peace often arrives as a trained normal, not a dramatic event. And don't turn this into perfection. You are going to forget, react, get pulled back, and repeat old things. That's part of the process. The point is not to never lose the thread. The point is to stop letting old conditioning make every decision without being questioned. Implementation and payoff. So for the next 7 days, pick one loop, one body cue, and one attention practice, then repeat them on purpose every day. That's how this becomes real. You're not only changing mood, you're changing perception, identity, and how much awareness can move through you without getting bent by old patterns. In the next video, we're going into brain waves, frequencies, and inner silence, because once the mind stops fighting its own training, a different depth of stillness starts becoming available, and your system is already taking notes. Until then, stay curious, stay conscious. If this stirred something inside you, Subscribe, like, and share this with a fellow seeker.